Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Level Up podcast. I'm your co-host, Brendan Payne, and Greg is on location somewhere today, so we'll just be myself today. But I'm excited. We've got an awesome young gun, what we refer to as kind of young guns in the industry, super solid agent in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, with C21 The Harrelson Group, Hunter Baiden. Hunter, man, thank you for hopping onto this. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to uncover some things about the industry, about myself as well, and see what we can share with everybody listening.
Awesome. Well, I know they're going to get a ton out of it, so it's always nice to have somebody on that's willing to share. So let's dive in. You're newer in the grand scheme of most agents. You're at the beginning stage. How long have you been in business?
I've been in business now selling for, this is be my third year. So 2 years in 2019, January 1st was my first full year in sales. And then of course, last year with COVID and everything. And now I'm on my third year full-time sales. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So for those that may not know you, give us a little bit of background on, like, it's always interesting. Very few people ever were in grade school and said, you know what, I'm going to become a real estate agent. So how'd you end up in this business?
I wish I had a shiny answer to that every time. And I do, after spending a few years in the industry, I think that I've kind of developed, what I could call an answer to that. And one would be, one reason I always knew real estate was a great vehicle to be in. It's a great opportunity to provide a lot of opportunities for yourself, but also a lot of others as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens to be a great way to create a great career. So getting into that, kind of being from Myrtle Beach as well, seeing a lot of the construction, a lot of the development in the area as well, I just decided that, hey, I want to be a part of that one day as well. So that's kind of my reason, just really wanted to get into the real estate industry from the beginning. And then the second reason is of course, I just wanted to help people. So I feel that I'm fairly decent at communicating and fairly decent at uncovering, what people's concerns are, what my sellers' concerns are, what their goals are as well, and just try to make sure that I'm comfortable with them and they're comfortable with me. But I felt that was a skill of mine that I could also take into the real estate industry to help people make that transition, help them make that move. And you combine both of those, and that's kind of how I found myself in the business.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're part of the generation that I think has seen, maybe you don't go the traditional route. Did you go to college?
No, I graduated high school, thankfully.
Okay.
I think if you look on if you look in a high school calendar, there's like 180 days that you have to go to school. And at the end of my senior year, I think that I was absent about 85 of those days. So fortunately, I graduated high school, and I did go to Coastal Carolina. I went to university, a local university, for about a year, about 2 semesters, was on and off there, didn't really have a reason to be there, didn't know what I was going to do after I graduated as well. So ended up, kind of just scratching that itch and getting into real estate. I ended up dropping out of Coastal Carolina, out of university. And I remember when I went to get out of the enrollment, it's a process. You've got to speak to 4 or 5 professors. You have to go and talk to the guidance counselor as well. And of course, I remember sitting in the office of the guidance office, and they're battling me with all these questions. Why are you dropping out? What are you going to do? The average person who drops out has, 0% success rate, hit me with all these statistics. And I told her that I was going to get into real estate. Real estate. At the time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if it was sales. I didn't know if I was going to be banging a hammer and building stuff. So I just knew that was something I wanted to be in. And I remember telling her real estate. And of course, she told me again, hit me with all the reasons not to do it. And I remember I finally just looked at her and said, look, I'm going to get into real estate. I'm going to be successful with it. Where do I sign off so I can get out of the school and start this? And that kind of bled into me and stuck with me for a while and helped me kind of catapult into real estate a little bit quicker. And a few things like that have happened since then, but anytime you can reference back to something to kind of give you some fuel through times that you need some fuel is always good experience to have as well.
Yeah.
So I did go to college for a little bit.
Yeah. It seems like there's always, I can probably count a half a dozen times in my life where those were major turning points. And I look at them and go, it probably would have been different if I would have gone a different direction. And some of you look back and go, maybe it would have been different better. but
Mhm.
most of them you look at and you say, man, if I would have made that choice, if I would have stayed there, what would have happened? And so that's pretty cool that was, you recognize that this is what I'm committed to, and you went in and her telling you no, you're staying in wasn't going to be an option.
Wasn't going to be an option, and that
Yeah,
was just more fuel too.
yeah. Somebody's telling you can't, and
Mhm.
especially it's not like I'm leaving this and I'm going to this actual job that I just got. No, I'm going to go into real estate. I'm sure she's
Right,
like, oh, sure,
right.
sure.
There's a lot of doubt there, and I did spend some time. I probably spent 3 or 4 months trying to just get my head on straight, figure out exactly what I was going to do. And of course, I went and got my real estate license, took the education courses during that time period. And by the time I had everything kind of lined up and had a few other jobs that I was doing at that time as well, not real estate related, but had to cut loose both of those and just jump into it full time. And I've been full time committed and ever since. So.
Got it. Got it. So fast forward now, 2 full years in the business,
Mhm.
starting first quarter of 2021's over, just finished a 12-month crazy time of COVID.
Mhm.
Give us some perspective on how it's going. What are you on track right now this year to do in terms of production?
Well, in my opinion, it's going great so far. I mean, the goal at the beginning of the year that I think we set in November or December of last year was 100 sales. From day one, from the time that I got into the business back in 2019, my goal for the third year was to cross that 100 deal threshold. And so far, we've closed 30 properties to date and another 28, 29 that are pending right now as well.
Yep.
So hopefully those will be, 50 to 60 or so by the end of the year. And hopefully we'll blow past that goal. I'm thinking between 120, 125 or so is where we can end up this year if we stay consistent and stay at it.
Yeah, and if my math's correct, you're well on your way to blow past the 100 transactions. For a lot of people listening, that might be like, no, oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. Third year in business, but you're on track. You have 30 closed sales. I verified you have 30 closed sales this year, and it bounced around in the mid 20s, pending consistently all year.
Mm-hmm.
So give some perspective on somebody that comes in brand new, self-proclaimed, just got out of high school, college wasn't the thing. You get into real estate. A lot of people do that, but what's the difference that caused that kind of success over a really, really short period of time for you?
It's a great question. I think it's a combination of things. So we hear it every day because we're in the business and we're surrounded by great leaders and great people. But to an outside agent who may not have access to that stuff or that training material and that knowledge, I think it's a combination of two things, and one's being extremely consistent. So you've got to find out what you need to actually be consistent at, which is contacts, appointments, learning your scripts. It can be a number of things, but one, you need to be extremely consistent from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you commit to, if you commit to studying the material, studying the market, studying the scripts, working on your business, then you need to do that on a consistent basis, whether it's 6 days a week or 7 days a week, choose one of the two, but you need to be extremely consistent. And then the second part of that is you need to take that consistency and take that hard work and determination, and you need to put it behind a systematic approach. What we do, it's almost, I call it a lot of times like an assembly line. The way that we operate and we sell real estate is because everything has a reason.
Mm-hmm.
If one button gets pushed and then another button pops out as well, if a listing comes in, then we need to know where that listing is going, who's getting a call to that client, when they'll be listed. There's a whole process that needs to go, and that just comes down to being extremely systematic with the approach as well. So you need to take consistency, hard work, determination, and apply that behind a systematic approach, and you can have results extremely quickly if you work hard enough and focus on that.
Yeah, I love where you broke down you can have all the commitment in the world, but if you're working on the wrong thing, you're not going to see the results. And then you can be working on the right thing, have all of the tools in front of you, all of the access to it. But if you're not committed and you're not consistent, then you're not going to get the results either. So it's really a combination of being in a position where you've got the skills that you can develop out of the training, but then you actually show up every single day. This just literally just popped into my head. My first memory of you in the office, any idea what it would be? Like first 2 days.
Standing up, rehearsing the scripts over and over and over again, having everybody in the office look at me. Who in the world is this kid talking to?
The audience, bingo. The audience is gonna love this. So your first couple of days, I remember, 7:30. I'm in there and I'm getting my stuff ready and doing a couple emails and checking a few things and getting ready. And I hear, "Good morning, Mr. Jones. Hi, it's Hunter with C21 The Harrelson Group," rolling through this just listed, just sold circle prospecting script. And I'm going, "Oh my God, it's 7:30. What is this guy doing?" And then another one, And it took about 5 or 6 calls. And I went, this guy is actually practicing role play like he's gonna do it at 8:00 when he starts getting live on the phones. That right there, and this just popped in my head, that right there, I probably at that point knew he's at least on the right track. Now, you have to keep doing that day in and day out. Everybody can show up on day one and do that. But the reason you're here is because that never stopped with you.
It didn't. And I want to dig deeper in that too.
Yeah, and then it just took off. So tell us about that.
Yeah, just to dig deeper in that and to add to that as well is what you guys saw in the office was half of it. By the time I would probably call in the first 9 months of my career, I would probably call from 8 to 8 if I didn't have appointments or whatnot in between. So I would call from 8 to 8 and then, of course, work on the scripts in the morning. But as soon as 8:00 hit and we legally couldn't call anymore, I would head home, go to the bathroom, look in the mirror and practice the scripts again. And I'd actually put down in the mirror, and I want people to really understand this because this is how important it is. I would put a mirror on my living room table and just kind of stare at it as if in practice, as if I was doing a presentation. So I would do that from 8:00 to 9:30 as late as I could until I got exhausted. But I had so much practice watching myself, listening to myself, recording the scripts, playing them back in the car, playing them in an iPod just over and over and over again to where it was just almost like automatic. I knew what to say.
Why was that so important to you? Like, we know the results, but why was that so important to you?
Confidence. It was the quickest way for me to get confidence. I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. You can study the market and you can have some market knowledge, but to be able to convey that, I needed practice in that. So I needed the scripts to give me the confidence to walk in and even ask the right questions. I didn't even have the confidence. If you don't know what to say, you don't have the knowledge, then you're not going to have the confidence either.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to make sure those listening to that really, really understand what he just said. The amount of reps that Hunter had after the first 12 months in business is probably more than the average agent has in 5+ years, because every day, it might be 10 years, you're making calls from 8 to 8, you're having real conversations. The best role plays in the world are with a live consumer on the other end that doesn't know the script. That's the best role play you can have, is a live consumer. And oh, by the way, you might actually get a deal. Then you go home and you say, I want to see what these people that I'm meeting with see when I sit down across from them. And that amount of repetition in there, you didn't have any choice but to get better, because you had to keep presenting to the guy who wasn't good. And then I'm sure knowing you probably were your biggest critique. And as you then continue to get better and better, then you look at somebody who's been in the business 10 years, they're not going on a listing appointment every day for weeks on end. You are going home and going on a listing appointment every day.
Every day. And I would even do like the hardest objections that I would get. I would write those down as soon as I get in the car and create flashcards. And the same thing, I'd flip over the flashcard and have to handle that objection immediately. No time to look back at notes. I would handle it and literally put myself as if I was presently in front of somebody and force the words to come out. And I think that's definitely a contribution to the success that I've had so far.
No, no doubt.
Without question.
No doubt. So I get this question all the time, and I know that I'm sure you do, and it's probably one the audience is asking right now. Okay, that's great. I understand it. But what is wrong with you? Like, how do you do this day in and day out? Because there's days that they may wake up and say, you know what, I want to go do something else. I don't want to do this. How do you keep the consistency going, knowing that you can get the reward on the other end, but it's still, it's a challenge sometimes. So how have you gotten through that?
Well, that's one of the biggest struggles with anybody, and I was thinking about this before we got on the call. Is I've been here now for 3 years now, and it almost breaks my heart, unfortunately, to see a lot of agents come through companies or come through the industry and be out of it within 6 months to 8 months. And I try to think about that and think, why does it happen? And aside from skills or knowledge or consistency and things like that. And usually it boils down to two things, in my opinion. The first one's going to be, you got to have a why. You got to know why you're doing it. You have to know why you're getting up. You have to know why you're going to force yourself to go to bed at 8 o'clock so you can be up early the next day as well. You have to know why you're going to the gym in the morning. You have to know why you're practicing the scripts, why you're going on the appointment. And you've got to be able to tie that to a bigger picture. You're not just going in to get a listing. You're going in to help a family, to help somebody, to help your family as well, to help everybody around you. And you need to have a bigger why. And then, and not anybody can spend time, figuring out their why and writing down, things to build their why. Then the second part is having a what's next, right? Having a next step in your life and your career that's not just specifically related to what you're doing on a daily basis. We're going to get the listing, we're going to do 100+ deals, but what's next after that? What's the reason we're doing that? And you have a why and you have an idea of what's next for you in life, then I think you're going to be able to find it very easy to remain consistent through hard times.
Yeah, it's connecting the dots, right? It's the getting up and doing something that you don't want to do. Yeah, you take the easy way out if you didn't see what was on the other end. But if A equals B and then that gets me to C, then that's the key. And a lot of times people don't. They would make that commitment if they ever took the time to figure the why. But if it's not there, then it's just easier to just go do something that's easier.
Yeah, and it's easy to go back to. In an appointment when you find yourself kind of struggling to get the business, or it gets late in the appointment or late on the phone call, it's easy to revert back to your why. Even write it down on your phone, write it down on a sticky note, have something that you can immediately revert back to. And you'll find that if it's strong enough, you're going to have a fire lit under you as soon as you recall that why. And it's going to be easy to get back to work and focus and dial back in.
Love it. Love it. So you obviously came from out of the industry, student, got into the business. You probably had your perceptions like we all do of what it was going to be. What's the biggest misconception that you had when you got into business compared to what you know now?
You see me smiling. Completely opposite. I mean, and I think I've heard others in the office say this, that the reason you get into real estate is probably the reason most people unfortunately fail out of real estate, which is to be your own boss and control your schedule and whatnot, and make all this money or whatnot. But as far as, what was the question again, one more time?
Yeah. So what was the biggest aha moment or thing that was just like, man, I was way off base on what that was, good or bad?
Right. So I kind of thought that, you're going to have all this freedom, have all this extra income, and it's going to be very, very easy. But that was the exact opposite. And when I figured that out, I think it really helped take some stress off. When I figured out that, one, you've got to be disciplined. Two, you actually have to be your boss. You have to actually make sure that you show up. You have to make sure you get the task done. And when you realize that, and you realize that, hey, I didn't get into this just to kind of lay around and get paid. You have to really work. You have to really help somebody. You have to know the market. And when you figure that out, it may be upsetting or may be disappointing, but it also may be inspiring, because now you've got an opportunity if you just hone in on that and do what you put the tie on to do every day, which is help people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest myth that, that we all got in, be your own boss, unlimited income, and set your own schedule. And that's a total myth in real estate if that's what you think is going to happen when you get into business. Now, the greatest thing is all three of those things are 100% true and attainable, but that happens after a fairly significant time of commitment and dedication to being really, really disciplined. So I don't think anybody gets into the real estate business and, all of a sudden they can have their freedom and they write their own schedule and they're their own boss and make any money. You can do that, but then typically it's like, I didn't really get the income I was wanting. I didn't really enjoy the time off because I didn't have the money that I thought. So it all kind of goes full circle. The discipline creates that down the road. And I think that's something, luckily, you grasped that pretty quickly and thought it was a good thing.
And like you said too, if you become disciplined and you become a good boss for yourself, you will have the freedom. you will make your goals, you will have the income, you will have the freedom. It's just in reverse.
Yeah.
You don't get that up front. You don't get the freedom, and you don't get the income that you want first. You have to put in the work. You have to become an authority. You have to be your own boss, and then that'll follow. So I think that it's true to an extent.
Yeah. And it's always interesting because a lot of times what forces people out of what they don't like doing is, the fact that they have to go and work a schedule and stuff like that. And they've got this delusion that when you get into the real estate industry, it's going to be different. And it's not. It's not. It's just the rewards are, 10x of what they could be in wherever you're currently at. So, so you're going to do, you're going to do plus 100 transactions, make a really good income this year, and continue to probably grow as high as you want to grow. So for somebody that's sitting there going, okay, now you kind of got me hooked. I think I'm starting to believe maybe I can do the same thing, whether they're new or just getting in the business. What's next for you? You mentioned earlier, like, you got to know what's next. So what do you want to do? Like, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? Still production or what?
Yeah, I still see, I still see production. I still think that real estate sales will be, I'm just going to be completely transparent. I think that real estate sales will still be something that I do for an extended amount of time. But I also want to get deeper into real estate as well. I talked to Greg quite a few times about, always ask questions about the developments that we've got going on in the company and what other agents are doing and construction. I always had a feel for that side of the business. And I think sales was kind of the stepping stone to get into that, but you've also got to have some capital. You've got to have some income and some free cash to really put into investments and put into development projects. And that's what I'm really looking at as to what's next. That's kind of what hunkers me down and continues to make me, do what I do every single day, because now I've got the next step as well. So developments, I love Myrtle Beach. I'm from here, so I want to build up Myrtle Beach the best way that I can, or build up South Carolina the best way that I can, and just get deeper into the industry and help as many people in the industry, just like this podcast, help people thrive in the industry as well and get as much out of it as they possibly can.
Yeah. So great example of, you had your why that got you here at 7:00, call from 8 to 8 in the beginning, go back, present yourself in a mirror, and now you're stable. Like I would think, by now, you're not going anywhere in this business. You can make it. You got a good foundation, but now look what moved. Now your why moved. So now you've got something else that you put in front of you and said, okay, now this is what's going to get me to go and do what I need to continue doing. That's a big part of what keeps all of us going, is continuing to move that goalpost. What's next? In this business, the greatest thing about this business is probably not the transactions that we do. It's the transactions that we do that give us the income and the freedom to go do other things that probably at some point will replace everything that we get the benefit of in our production right now. That core business is so important to exposing, whether it's development, investments, buying rentals, things like that. It's all the bonuses that go along with being a really skilled agent, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just thinking probably about this time last year. I was really struggling with trying to grasp that same concept. Why are we doing all the transactions? What's the point? I almost felt really detached from the business and didn't get an emotional return from really anything that happened. We'd have sales, we'd have pending properties, and I wasn't getting a good emotional return from it. And so I spoke to a great leader in the company about the issue, because I felt that it was affecting my production and affecting, my why, my motivation. And he pretty much said that same point. So I really want to stress that, because other people may be feeling that same way as well. What's the point? Why am I doing it? The money's good. We've already got enough money saved up in the bank. And what's the reason on keeping on? And you've got to attach that to the freedom, to the vacations, to the freedom with bills. Everything, the freedom to have options in life, to have options to do developments, to do construction, do everything, anything you want to do. But you have that option, and it starts with mastering the very first thing you got going, which is sales. And you have to master that first, get that platform running, and then you've got options in the other fields of desire as well.
Yeah. And this is that's probably, just like all of those other options are the unseen benefit of this job, man. for the people that get in and probably would be really good at some of that other stuff, but they never develop the core, so they never develop the income and the foundation to be able to go do that stuff. What a shame, because there's probably some people that would be really, really good, but it has to start with that foundation. How do you go and take that next step if you can't sit down and make a great presentation to a buyer or seller on a single transaction?
You gotta push. It's like if we go up a hill and you've got a huge boulder in front of you, 500-pound boulder, and you're trying to push it up the hill. You can't do anything. You can't have an arm free. You've got to push that boulder up the hill before you focus on anything else.
Yeah.
So that's the focus is, yes, I want to get into a ton of other ventures and businesses and industries, but I understand that I've got a 500-pound boulder on top of me. I've got to push it up to the top of the hill, get it stabilized, and then I can go into something else, and have the freedom to do that. But as of right now, I've still got to push the business in the right direction. And that's just kind of my mentality as well for it.
That's a great visual, great analogy. So we're kind of getting towards the end here, and I know that hopefully people will listen to this a couple of times and take some notes on some of the things the nuggets that you've thrown out there. If you're going back and telling you, once you are getting ready to get in business, or somebody that's new right now and where you were last year and just kind of like, oh man, I'm just not sure, and they're losing the confidence, what's the biggest piece of advice, or the most important piece of advice you give somebody that's newer in their career, that's trying to get to the level that you're at right now?
Have a filter. Protect what's coming into your mind and occupying your time. You've got to have a very strong filter. If you look at most of the top agents in our entire market, and especially in the office, they have an extremely strong filter. Like, nobody's coming in. There's not shiny objects that are coming in. There's not this kind of brokerage or this platform is going to work and boost your leads or boost your sales. Have an extremely strong filter and protect your time. Protect it like it's the most important thing in your entire life, because it really is. My family, even my family and girlfriend and everybody that I'm involved with, knows to really not call me until about 6:30 at night, because I will not answer. You've got to really have a filter on everybody and be upfront with everybody too. Clients need to know, when they can reach you and how to reach you, but not just clients, but family, everybody involved needs to be on the same boat as well, because you've got to have a strong filter and strong protection of your time. So that's kind of one thing I would say, is protect your time.
Yeah, I love that. And I know how important family and stuff is to you. So that's for when you had that conversation and let them know, this is really about you. This is not about me not wanting to talk with you. This is what I'm doing because that's so important. Then I'm sure it makes a ton of sense to them. So Hunter, great information. And I appreciate you. Very candid, very transparent, as I knew you would be. And I really appreciate you hopping on here and kind of going through all that stuff with us.
Good deal. Thank you, Brendan. I appreciate it. Hopefully the listeners got something from it. So
I know they definitely will, and we'll have to get you back on here and see what 2021 turns out like. I know there's going to be a big number, so I'm excited for you. And for those of you listening, please, if you like what we're bringing to the show and continue to have great guests like Hunter, please give us a review. Feedback's great one way or another. If it's great, fine. If it's not, perfectly fine as well. Make sure and subscribe and let us know what we can do in other topics that you're interested in. Also, make sure to visit Real Estate Sales Solutions. We've got a ton of content on there that is, it's designed to help you continue to grow and be the best agent that you can be and level up from agent to entrepreneur. So until the next time, Hunter, thanks again, and we'll talk to y'all soon.